URC semi-final number 1, folks. Bulls up against Leinster, and it's the Bulls who get the job done. Now, I am going to mention the result of semi-final number 2, so if you don't want to know, maybe switch off and come back later. But man, the Bulls, with a kind of all-star stacked Leinster team coming to town, and the Bulls kind of without a couple of guys injured, especially on the wings, you thought maybe they were a bit sketchy against Benetton last week, but no, 25 points to 20. They get the job done. And with the other result going the way it did, South Africa will see the third URC final in a row hosted in South Africa. The Bulls will get to play Glasgow next week, which is massive. And for Leinster, it's another season kind of trophy list. They paid the price, you would say, a bit for not always playing their stronger side in the URC, finishing third on the table, having to play an away semi-final down at Loftus. Tough place to go, man. So, yeah, you got to ask yourself where the balance lies, between the Champions Cup and the URC. Obviously, the Bulls at one point sent a kind of much changed lineup in the other competition in the Champions Cup, maybe put a bit more focus on the URC, and they are kind of reaping the rewards for that. If Leinster had won the Champions Cup, maybe this conversation wouldn't be a thing, but here we are. For this game, we'll go through some key events and some stats, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. Tentative start early on, a bit of a kicking duel between James Lowe and Johan Goosen. I thought over the course of the game, the Bulls had the better of the kicking duel, to be fair. They certainly won the territorial game. Goosen even had a shot at a drop goal early on, which kind of went wide. It was a long-range one, but it's one of those ones that reminds you got to be careful at altitude because the ball does travel. 18 minutes, it looked like we'd had the first try of the game, and the Bulls looked really sharp when they shoveled the ball wide. And man, there were some bloody nice passes. It looked like Devin Williams, who was one of the kind of call-ups to the side, with the likes of Moody and Arendse being out. It looked like he got over for the first try. The passing was beautiful. 2 wide passes, but it was chalked off for a kind of dumb off-the-ball play by Van Staden to kind of pull Ross Byrne to ground tackle off the ball. Unnecessary, but, sometimes that happens. So, no try. And then Ross Byrne, not long later, takes a shot at goal, and it's a bit of a shocker as well. So, nothing doing after 20 minutes in this game. Peterson gets a yellow card. He's the other winger who's kind of into the squad for this game with the other guys being out. He gets yellow carded for a deliberate knock-on, which kind of sucks because, if you watched Super Rugby yesterday, we saw a semi-final which saw an intercept try literally with the same kind of hand movement, but the way they rule it in rugby union is if you stick your hand out one-handed and don't get the intercept, it's ruled as a deliberate knock-on. Even if your intention was to intercept the ball, it's still a deliberate knock-on, which doesn't kind of make sense in my head because it's not a deliberate knock-on, it's a failed intercept, but it is what it is. He gets yellow-carded, and then Leinster immediately punish. A minute later, Gibson Park to Byrne to Lowe over on the blind side, 7 points to 0. So, yeah, bit of a kind of double whammy for the Bulls to take, but Leinster did well to punish the yellow card, which is not something we've seen in all the games this weekend. But that being said, towards the end of the yellow card, the Bulls were able to hit back. It was cracking stuff. Leroux had a really nice 50-22, and he was finding some really kind of open spaces in that Leinster backfield. Line-out phases, and then Goosen goes between, I think it was Lowe and Byrne. Kind of a crisp pass from the Bulls guys and a kind of a bad defensive read from Leinster, but 7 points apiece. And, yeah, man, honestly, the kicking of Leroux, of Papier, of Goosen was really doing pretty well. At times, the game came to that. Scrum penalty to the Bulls before halftime meant a shot at goal, which went over, which meant a 10-7 lead for the Bulls at halftime. They've had 60% possession and 64% territory, so decent value for the lead despite the yellow card. Then the second half, Peterson, wow, like a proper try scorer's try. Did well to gather and touch down a kick from Forster. And again, it was after the Bulls had been doing that kind of shift in the ball wide play. They really looked dangerous out wide, which is pleasing to see. So 17-7, 10-point lead. Their scrum is getting on top. Like at one point, they got a tight head on a Leinster feed, which is not something you see that often. They had a wee chance, but Papier got pinged for kind of pushing Gibson Park into touch. And to be fair, The ref did warn the guys for a bit of off the ball play, but a lot of stuff seemed to be getting missed. Now I'm not one for like I want to see everything blown up. I want to see them go back for every little stoppage or every little guy who shifts some guy off the ball like after the play, which didn't make a difference. But it did seem like a few hits that were a bit dodgy. A bit of dodgy stuff seemed to be missed in this one. But anyway, that kind of is what it is. Leinster did get some pressure to get themselves back in the game. They managed to get the Bulls to concede a couple of penalties. Eventually, they had a 5-metre tap close to the Bulls' line, and Doris was able to burrow over with the support of a couple of his props. So 17 points to 14, that's proper game on. There was a bit of crazy kind of back and forth play, which ended up at one point with Ronan Kelleher, who's come off the reserve hooker, booting the ball clear just to kind of get a bit of a stoppage in play. And maybe, sometimes you need to kick it to Rosette against the Bulls because they kept wanting to play quickly, to be fair. I mean, altitude, you want to run the opposition off their feet, which kind of makes sense to me. But, yeah, you end up with a bit of a tit for tat. Like, Leinster end up at the end of that helter-skelter period getting a penalty, so 17 points apiece. Husson gets one in reply, 20 points to 17. And then Leinster get another one. So 20 points to 20. What's going to be the difference? The difference is going to be an Ambrose Papier box kick and a one-handed gather from that man Peterson. Like, he was involved in a bit of everything. Frankly, it was just insane. He beats Frawley to the ball, one-handed taps it to himself. And, try time. Missed conversion, but 25-20. Like, if that's going to be the difference breaker, that's a proper way to score it, eh? It was a proper thing of beauty try. 25 points to 20. That's the final score of the game. Leinster did push. They had 20-plus phases, but the Bulls' defence held. They had some big tackles and counter-ruck to secure the ball for themselves. Seatbelt tackle on Husson by Conan. Meant a penalty shot for the Bulls before full-time, but it was missed. But, the Bulls were able to see out the game and get themselves into a final. So second final in 3 years for the Bulls. Third final in a row for South Africa. It'll be a really interesting one to see next week. And the final, I think, is on at 4 o'clock in the morning for me next week. So that's much more palatable than 2. So I'll be watching that one live. Run meters finished 408 to 436. They're pretty even. Leinster edged that. Leinster edged also the possession, but the Bulls still controlled the territory, 59%. They also tackled better, 87%, which is pretty classy. Leinster at 82 is a bit low. Below 85, getting towards the 70s is a bit low at this level. Bulls had to make 152 tackles to 108 for Leinster. Clean breaks 8 to 6, so the Bulls edged that. Penalties conceded is pretty low, 8 to 4. So, as I said, maybe a little bit of stuff got missed. Penalty counts usually edge a little bit higher than that. Individuals, Peterson, 2 clean breaks, 2 tries. Pretty nice numbers. Honeycomb gets man of the match, deservedly so. 83 metres for a loose forward's crazy, and 6 defenders beaten, 2 clean breaks from him as well. Eric Lowe, 17 from 18 tackles. James Lowe had 100-plus run metres as well, beat a few defenders. Josh van der Fleer, 12 from 12 tackles. But, yeah, URC semi-final number 1. That's it. Next week we see the Bulls host Glasgow. They'll be the final. They'll be the favourites for that one in the final, the Bulls for sure. But it was just last season that we saw an away winner in a URC final, so nothing is guaranteed. You guys let us know your thoughts on the game. How did you reckon it went? And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.